Welcome, everybody, to the Friar Talk podcast. Today, we're going to be talking just about the Padres, about the Giants. We're going to be talking about if there could be a potential rivalry in a couple years. But before we get into anything, I want to say there is a Fernando Tatis update. He had a left shoulder injury. It was yesterday, and he's just going to be out a couple days. Doesn't seem like a big deal, though it has been a nagging left shoulder injury that he's had since being in the minor leagues. So maybe a little concerning that it's just been nagging him, but it shouldn't be anything serious, and he should be back in a couple days. But with all that said, we have a special guest on today, Leo Luna. He is a Giants fan. He covers pretty much all San Francisco sports, Giants, 49ers. Leo, you want to introduce yourself and say hi to everybody?
Yeah, I appreciate you three having me on real quick. So I do talk Giants on the Tapped In SF Giants podcast. I've been with the 49ers through Sports Illustrated. Now I started my own website with the 49ers Gold Mine. And man, talking 49ers could get really toxic. And baseball was kind of my first love. So now that I'm able to focus on that more in a podcast role and do what you guys are doing as well, it's been really exciting for me. And I'm really looking forward to this baseball season, especially that I'll be seeing you guys in that brown and yellow pretty soon here within just over a week.
You said you're going into the opening day series, right? Padres Diamondbacks?
Correct. So I'll be there for that because of the COVID regulations and all that. I couldn't swing opening day. Not sure if I wanted to because I heard those ticket prices are crazy for opening day. But luckily, because I'm a baseball fan, like I said, that was my first love. So I got onto the 2020 season ticket membership before the whole COVID shut down everything. I got it in like December of 2019. And they were like, hey, we'll keep you with the same prices and give you some extra percentages, and you could go to games once 2021 happens. So I'm able to go to game 2 of that series. So we'll see who's pitching for the D-backs. Maybe Bumgarner, and I'll get to see my old friend.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Probably been a while since you've seen him, especially because those last few years on the Giants, he wasn't always healthy. wasn't really the same dude. But today I was going to say we're going to be talking. The big question for this episode is, can the Padres and Giants ever have a rivalry? Obviously, the Giants have had some success. A few years ago, they had the 3 World Series championships, and it's the even years, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So they had them in the even years. And at that time, the Padres were nothing special. In 2010, the Padres, this was my first heartbreak of sports, was when the Padres were eliminated by the Giants on the final day of the regular season. So there is some history between the two teams, but I don't think anyone would consider the San Francisco Giants and the San Diego Padres a rivalry. But times have changed a lot for the Padres, especially. They're becoming not a big market team, but they're actually paying some guys. We've seen them break off both Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis for $300 million each. And the Padres, it's looking like their future is a lot brighter than it has been in the past for sure. And with the Giants, they might not have the roster and stuff this year. And I'll let you get into this year's Giants team in just a second, Leo. But they're a team that can spend money. They're a team that's building up their farm again. And I don't know. I think in a couple years we could see something like that. But let's just talk this next year. And Leo, I'll let you start with the Giants. What do you think, man? What do you think their year is going to look like?
I'll go off on really quick the rivalry aspect that you brought up. I think there can be, because where the Padres are now, they're going to be good for a lot of years in a row. They're not an old team. But where I think it can be is I went to that opening day in 2019 where the Padres beat the Giants 2-0. Tatis had his first major league hit. I was wearing Giants hat, Giant jersey. Man, I got trash talk. People were just trash talking the crap out of me. And I'm not so used to that when I was attending games at Petco. So, yeah, I think there could be something brewing there. Padres kind of just making up for those lost years that they had. And this year, they're going to have more hit for average hitters. They're not going to be Slam Francisco. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal that from you guys. That's going to stay in Slam Diego. That's not going nowhere, at least not to San Francisco. They have more of a roster that's going to hit around the 280 range. Maybe get a 300 hitter in Donovan Solano. We'll see what Buster Posey does once again. I'm hoping he could be a 280 hitter because his last major league career, he was around the 250 mark. The guy's over 30 now. How much is the knees going to tax him at the plate? His back as well has been kind of a bit of an issue. Evan Longoria's 35 years old. Crawford's 34. So this team's it's up there in age. Plus their pitching staff isn't the Padres pitching staff as well. So they're kind of the polar opposites to where their pitching staff is looking like Gossman, a 35-year-old Cueto, DeSclafani, who's coming off a bad year, Logan Webb, who's actually looked sharp in spring training. He hasn't gave up any earned runs in about 4 starts there. And then Aaron Sanchez, who used to be one of the top prospects in baseball, is looking really good in spring training as well. So they have kind of those guys that could have a high ceiling, but also the floor could be really low as well in their pitching staff.
So do you think it's going to come down to if that pitching staff can overperform, like for the 2021 year?
I think they can. Like if their pitching staff can perform, I think they can win some baseball games. Because they may not have the home run hitting lineup, but they were 5th in average last year. They were 8th in run scores. That's across baseball and not just the National League. So they could put up some runs, have a guy on second, hit a single, boom, there's a run there. So it's not going to come all at once like the Padres were able to do last year, especially in the first round of the playoffs against the Cardinals, where the Padres were chasing, hit a bunch of home runs. Now they have the lead. The Giants aren't going to be that team. It's kind of going to be more of the pulling out your hair catch-up games than just seeing it happen off a couple swings like the Padres can do. But it's going to come down to the pitching. Their starting pitchers were 21st in ERA last year, and they were 18th in based on balls per 9 innings. So they walked a lot of guys, gave up a lot of runs, gave up a lot of hits, and their bullpen also was really bad on base on balls and home runs, as you saw Trent Grisham walked off on the Giants in Oracle Park there, which was 2020 in a nutshell.
Chase, what do you think about this Giants team moving into 2021? Do you think they're going to be better than they were last year?
I think they have a chance to be better than they were last year. All I know is that the Giants, man, they're a feisty team. And even every year you look at their roster and you're like, man, these guys are old. I don't know how long they're going to be able to keep this 162 game. And you start playing them and you realize like, wow, these guys got some fight in them. Because every single time the Padres have played the Giants, I feel like it's never an easy series. It's like, okay, they just keep trading runs every single inning. It's like never ending. Those are the stressful series. Every time we play the Giants, I'm like, I don't know if we're going to win this one. I feel like the Giants are going to take 2 out of 3 just because they're feisty.
Was it last year? Was it at the beginning of the year? I don't know if the Giants swept the Padres. I think they at least beat them, but the Giants fought that whole series. Huh?
Yeah, the Giants fought in every series, but they got owned by the Padres last year.
Really?
I think they only took like 2 games from the Padres at most, 2 games.
It might have been 2019 then when like the Padres were getting some momentum. It was before Tatis was injured that year. And then they went and they played the Giants. And I remember watching that game with my dad, and he's like, oh yeah, it's the same Padres team. And he was just so frustrated because the Giants just came out. And I'm pretty sure that you guys swept us in that one. But no, I agree.
Yeah, that's right. That was in 2019 when you guys were getting some momentum, putting games together, and I was just like, oh crap, like this Padres team's hot. And then out of nowhere, like the Giants, I think they were in last place in the division at the time, swept the Padres, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, because I was not expecting that myself at all. But yeah, that was 2019.
Isaac, what do you think about this Giants team? You agree that they're a feisty team, kind of a team that makes you a little bit frustrated when the Padres have to play them?
Yeah, that series you guys are talking about, I was actually able to go to one of those games, and I remember thinking, oh, cool, like, we're going to go and we're going to win, and it's going to be a good day. And I remember they lost because Alex Dickerson, I think we all know that name. I think he hit like 2 bombs. Solano hit another one. But, it was brought up that these guys are mostly average hitters, that they hit for average. And the guys that come to mind for me, like Solano, Yastrzemski, and Alex Dickerson, Now, like Chase said, I think we've mentioned this on another podcast before. The Giants, for some reason, are always really scrappy, where it does feel like we're going to go in and we're going to win the series, but they throw a fit. Like, it's almost like we can't have an unstressful game against the Giants. And I don't know why. No matter who's pitching, they could be the worst pitcher in the league, but for some reason, it's always a really close game with us. And it's fun to watch. I remember last year, I think it was Yaz that walked off on us at Oracle too, Matt Strong. So
Mm-hmm.
the Giants always frustrate me when we play.
I remember how upset we were at Matt Strom at the beginning of last season, because it felt like everything was going wrong for him at the beginning, and he settled down. He actually had a nice year, but I do remember that one, and it was just like, we can't put Matt Strom in that situation ever again, and we were so frustrated. We definitely like went a little overboard on it. Like, all right, we can't see him in there. Was it in extras or was it in the ninth?
It was in the ninth. I remember
it was. We lost the lead, and then he allowed the walk off. That's right.
Yeah.
We put Matt Strom in kind of the same category as Craig Stanton.
Yeah, we would get frustrated.
I think that's a little much. I think that's a little much. I think Craig Stammen is definitely like the bag on the most. Then it's Hosmer, and then it's Strom.
I'm saying the way we did it at the beginning of last season, I know for me at least, I was just as mad at him as I was at Stammen.
So Isaac, I'll go to you. What do you think about this potential rivalry? Do you think there's a chance?
I think there's a chance. I know they're kind of an aging team, but I know they have a couple players that are pretty young. I think his name is Mauricio Dubon.
Yep, Mauricio Dubon. He came on at the end of last year. He's pretty young. He could play infield, and they've been trying to make him a center fielder, which he played quite a bit last year. But yeah, I think he finished the year around the 280, 290 mark. Let me just confirm real quick. Dubon, he finished the year at 274, and he started the year like sub 200 for quite a bit. So he's a guy who, after a few games together, he kind of got familiar with the play, and he looked like he put on a few pounds this offseason too.
Yeah, so that's a guy that comes to mind when I think of some of the young guys. But one of the guys that actually gets a lot of hype is Joey Bart. I've heard a lot of good things about Joey Bart. He's supposed to be, the heir apparent to Buster Posey. And so when you think of the future of the Giants team, it seems like it's going to rely a lot on Yaz and Joey Bart. So there could definitely be a rivalry, just the way, we're kind of brewing a rivalry with the Dodgers with the way that Fernando's come up and, Grisham pimping home runs off them, throwing balls in their bullpen, That's how these rivalries happen, and it's good to see. So I do hope we have a rivalry with the Giants. I know a couple of Giants fans that are my friends, so that'd be cool to see.
If the Giants are better, that'll help you guys out for when they play against the Dodgers. The Dodgers aren't just having easy victories over the rest of the division. And for example, the Giants lost a series to the Dodgers last year, but it was only a 6-4 mark. So it wasn't like it helped them out in that way. The better that the Giants can be, yeah, it's going to make it tough, playing those division games. But the better that the Giants could be, it's going to help out the Padres in the long run by not letting the Dodgers just play against the Rockies and getting a guaranteed sweep in a series, if you want to look at it that way.
Well, I like that you bring that up too, because you bring up the Rockies. The Rockies and the Diamondbacks, I don't think they're going to be very good teams, at least for the foreseeable future. The Diamondbacks, it doesn't look pretty, especially doesn't look pretty for them now in 2021. Now that we hear that Bumgarner is either going to pitch the first or second game of the season, we saw what happened when he pitched against San Diego last year. But just looking at their teams, like the Rockies, they just traded Arenado. I think both of those teams are going to be sellers at the deadline, and they're going to start a longer rebuild. I don't know. That's what I project them to do. Where the Giants, I don't know if you'd call it a rebuild because they have a lot of aging players, but they're starting to retool their farm system. I mean, they have these young guys, and they have I don't know. Joey Bart is the guy that I think everyone wants to talk about. But I mean, they have like the perfect guy to mentor him, and it's like almost a new age of Giants players. Also, they're going to free up some money with Cueto being eventually going to be gone. Longoria, Brandon Bell, all those guys. So when those contracts start to end and you start to see them replacing a lot of the talent and then building around this young core, I definitely think that it's going to be the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Giants at top of that division.
basically all the contracts come off the books besides Evan Longoria after the season. Buster Posey has a team option, which they're going to decline. It's going to cost them $20 million. I don't see why they're going to take that the way that they're going with this new kind of, we're going to get guys on the cheap and we're going to build through the farm system. So I don't see that, especially when you have Joey Bart waiting in the rings, as well as Brandon Belt's off the books, Brandon Crawford's off the books, and like you said, Johnny Cueto's off the books. That's like almost 80. That's $100 million right there off the books. And knowing the Giants and how their fans act in San Francisco, they're going to replenish that with probably younger contracts. Maybe Trevor Story. You were talking about the Rockies. That's the guy. Yeah, they just lost Arenado, and they're probably not going to have Trevor Story next year. So he could be someone that they flip at the deadline. And if they flip Trevor Story at the deadline, man, it's going to suck because obviously they're not going to be competitive for the Dodgers, but at least it's going to help out the rest of the division when they play the Rockies, because it should be a series victory.
That's true. I just want to get your perspective on this, but I'm talking a lot about, the Giants, how they're going to look in a couple years. To have an outside perspective and not be a Padres fan, because we definitely have some bias in that. But what is it going to take for the Padres to have continued success in your mind?
Just looking off last year, it's not have those unfortunate injuries or just the wrong timing that the injuries come. Um, it's like, yeah, you could get on a roll. I think the Padres will be fine. I think they'll be competitive for years to come. But when do those injuries happen? Does it happen in the playoffs? Does it happen in the beginning of this year, and then your team's not putting together games? And it's also keeping Fernando Tatis on the field, because I believe I saw the stat from MLB Network to where they're almost like 20 games under 500 when he's not in the lineup, opposed to being 11 games over 500. So it's just keeping that player health. They don't have very many holes. Their lineup could go put up 9 runs in about almost any game, and then their rotation is solid. It's just keeping those guys healthy. Same thing with the bullpen. Like, you had Kirby Yates out all of last year, and he was that staple piece in the back of the bullpen. So it's kind of like the easy and weak answer, saying no injuries or limit the amount of injuries, because that's something that's completely out of the management's control. But it is a reality, because the Padres are stacked. They're young. While they're young with these players in the MLB, they still have a stacked farm system. Like, we haven't even seen Mackenzie Gore in the major leagues yet, and he's someone who's probably going to be a bona fide all-star.
No, I like that a lot. Chase, anything to add to what he said about the Padres having continued success?
Our pitchers, I think we have one guy that has thrown over 200 innings in a game, and he's 33, 34 years old. We don't know if he can do that again this year. So we really need to be careful with our pitchers. A lot of guys have gotten hurt. Klett out. Lamet is out. So, like, if we lose another guy, we're going to lose that staple that we had at the beginning of the season. So we got to really focus on keeping those guys healthy, like you were saying.
And that's what we are heavy advocates for the Padres, to have a 6-man rotation, by the way, Leo. We're big on that. Get the young guys in there, see some action.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against that 6-man rotation, especially a team like the Padres. They could be up on the Rule 5 draft and lose a couple guys because you can't get them on the major league roster, or the 40-man. I would be for it. It just depends. How much are you going to tax your relievers if you do that? Is Joe Musgrove going to be a guy that consistently goes 6 innings, or are you going to need your relievers to help them get through a game? And if you need that for Joe Musgrove, who's your number 5 starter, are you going to have to do the same thing with a younger pitcher, a rookie pitcher? So it just depends. I would be for trying it out, absolutely. But you got to see what it does to your bullpen. Does it tax your bullpen more, or does it tax the starters more? You got to play that balance game, and whichever balance fits you more.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, because one of the guys that would probably have one of those six spots in the rotation would be Morahone. And Morahone has been a guy that like, okay, he's going to go out there and pitch 3 innings, 4 innings. He doesn't even usually go 5. So maybe you even use him as an opener and they only do a 5, but then they transition to a 6. Like, there's so many things they could do with it, but the health of the pitchers is such a big deal. I think it really, like, the biggest parts of the health aspect are, can Fernando Tatis stay healthy, and can the Padres have a consistent 5 starters? Because that's what's going to be the big deal. And that's why we saw them go and get so much depth at starting pitching this year. Isaac, though, what else do you think the Padres need to do to have this continued success?
Yeah, you guys brought up that health of the pitching rotation, health of the bullpen is going to be very key. But I think one thing I want to bring up that maybe it's not important for the success, but it's going to be important to put us over the top. At the beginning of the season last year, we saw Fernando was off to a really hot start. That was amazing baseball that was played by Fernando. But Manny started off batting like 1-something. And then in the later half of the season, we saw Fernando go on a big slump, and Manny started carrying the load. I think something that I want to emphasize is that how good we can be if those two are on at the same time. How good it would be for our lineup for both of those guys to be batting, 300 at the same time. If we can get first half Fernando and second half Manny and have that for most of the season, I don't know if there's many teams out there that can beat us or stack up to a 2-3 punch the way that these two can. And we have guys throughout the lineup, Cronenworth, Profar, Grisham, Pham, that are constantly able to get on. And these two doing what we know they can do throughout the season is going to be vital for, those games against the Dodgers where they have Bellinger and Betts who are going back to back, or, Seager was batting over 300. So getting production out of the left side continuously throughout the season at the same time is very important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I don't want to keep you forever here, Leo. So to wrap this up, I just want to know, who are in your mind, because this episode is about the rivalry, but who are your San Francisco Giants building blocks? I don't know how many guys you have, just like a handful of guys that you think, if this becomes a rivalry, they're going to be crucial pieces in, 3 years.
Okay, so just looking at Fangraphs prospects rankings, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in their top 100 for the Giants. One of them, it's crazy because I couldn't watch one spring training game that included the Giants' top prospect, shortstop Marco Luciano, and saying, "Oh, he's the next Fernando Tatis. He's the next Fernando Tatis." And it's like, man, let my guy get some spring training at bats, please. That's probably why he went like 1 for 11 with 9 strikeouts, because everyone wants to call him Fernando Tatis. But it's going to be Marco Luciano. His ETA is 2023. Joey Bart, as we've mentioned. Heliot Ramos has hit 3 home runs already in spring training in his limited amount of bats. He's got a lot of pop out there in the outfield. His ETA is 2022, as well as you have Luis Matos, who's a third baseman, Gregory Santos, who's a pitcher, and then another catcher that they've been trying to work at the corners is Patrick Bailey. His ETA is 2022, and he was a first-round pick in 2019. So they have those guys. Those are going to be the guys to keep on an eye on. Unfortunately for myself, not for you guys, the Giants don't have the pitching prospects that the Padres had. The Padres had position players on top of pitching. The Giants prospects are position player heavy. So they're probably going to have to add pitching one way, maybe focus on that in the free agency in the winter, because I would say the ETA, since they give ETA for prospects, I'm going to say ETA for rivalry will be 2024. Giants have about 2 to 3 years before, they could start calling themselves, we're competing for the 1 spot or 2 spot in the division.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's pretty accurate. 2024, you have a few years. Some of these older players are going to kind of be phased out. I mean, and you already said pretty much all of those guys are going to be gone. It was Longoria, and then Posey has a team option, and you said they're not going to accept it. Or
yeah, they're not going to accept Posey's team option at $20 million. And then it's just 1 year of Longoria in 2022. So their ETA is probably 2024 when it's going to be a freaking 3-headed race and we're all going to be pulling our hair outs, and it's going to be a really, really tough division, probably the best division in baseball in 2024 because of the top 3.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun. I'm super excited. And like we said, I already have good memories of the Giants and the Padres playing, and there really hasn't been like many high stakes games between the two. So I'm looking forward to having some fun series, having some competitive series. Hey, maybe they'll meet up in a playoff series. That would be awesome. But I want to say thanks again for coming on, Leo. This was a fun one, totally different than our past episodes, but it was cool to get some perspective on the Padres from a Giants fan, and also just kind of see where the Giants are at and if this could really become a rivalry. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Really quick, I got the season tickets for the Padres, even being a Giants fan, because that's how much fun you guys are to watch. I could go to a baseball game and still enjoy it because you have guys like Manny Machado blasting home runs, Fernando Tatis, and then I obviously know the prospects coming up like Mackenzie Gore. So you guys are doing the right thing. I just hope the Giants follow in those footsteps.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone that's listening to this channel for the first time, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Super awesome. Our pod's been doing fantastic on YouTube. So I want to say thanks again for everyone out there supporting us. It's been really cool to see that growth. And thanks again, Leo. Thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Yeah, we'll talk.